sweet friends, and welcome back to the Quilter's Candy Shop, where you will find sweet treats for the discerning quilter. We keep rolling along with our Winter's Garden block of the month. Today is episode 5, and we are building block number 3. This is my favorite of the 5 blocks for this quilt. It's so pretty. I just love the color combination. Well, first we need to get some house cleaning out of the way. As usual, I'm going to suggest that you go through the fabric listing and relabel the descriptions to coordinate with the fabrics that you're using so you can quickly find and cut the pieces that you need. Also, we have one small error in the pattern this month. If you are making the pieced centers only, this may not apply to you. However, you may want to make the correction in case you decide to make this applique block in the future. Turn to page 13 and look to the applique section. The third fabric is listed as Teal Baby Floret, number 97910123. It should be 9793-0120 instead. It's not that big a difference because with the applique you can use whatever fabrics you want, but if you're wanting to make it just like the pattern describes, then that would be a change you would need to make. And it'll make it easier for you to find the correct fabric on your map. That's it for the corrections. Now let's get on to building the block. I have mentioned before that the outside ring of the blocks are exactly the same for all of the 9 feature blocks. If you want detailed instructions on the steps to build the outside ring, go back to episode number 3, where I lay out a step-by-step process. But here's a quick review so you can see the colors and prints we are going to use for block number 3. First, you're going to make half square triangles to create this cute 4 patch that goes in the corners. Next, you're going to build the double flying geese units. Start with the 2-inch by 4-inch flying geese unit. Add the spacer triangles on either side and the top triangle on the point to make the inner triangle of the flying geese unit. Finish by adding the second set of large triangle wings to make these geese fly. Add your units to the block layout. Sew together your corner units with your flying geese to make a top row and a bottom row. And that brings us to the center of the block. You can make all your blocks with pieced centers, or you can make all your blocks with applique centers, or you can mix it up to make something unique. The pieced center of this block is very easy and it is darling. I love the simple 4 patch combined with traditional flying geese and topped off with this pretty little half square triangle pointing to the center of the block. The process is very similar to the outside ring. First, make the 2 at a time half square triangles, then a set of flying geese, and lastly a simple 4 patch for the center. Sew the units into rows, then sew the rows together, and there you go. The center is complete. Add the block to the center ring. Add the double flying geese to the sides of the block to create the center row, and then add the top row and the bottom row to complete the block. Lastly, don't forget to add the floating borders around your blocks to protect your points. Now, let's talk about the applique option. This month's applique technique is the well-known and popularly used fusibles technique. There are a lot of different kinds of fusible products out there: Heat and Bond, Wonder Under, Steam-A-Seam, and many more. Ideally, you want a paper-backed lightweight fusible. You can feel there's a bumpy side, that's the side with the glue, and there's a flat, smooth side, that's the side with the release paper. We carry Pellon's 805 Wonder Under by the yard in our shop, which you can find on our website at www.thequilterscandyshop.com. That's SHOPPE shop.com. Applying fusible webbing is not difficult. Anyone can do it. I'm going to show you the process that works best for me and a couple of tricks to make things come out great. So let's get started. As usual, I suggest that you start by using the applique mapping technique described in month number 3 to create a map on your background square for your layout pieces. I just use a fine point mechanical pencil and draw inside the lines that's on the applique layout, and that gives me a really nice map for placement, and it's smaller than the applique pieces will be, so it's not going to show. Because this month's appliques have a piece that is not symmetrical, I suggest making a copy of the appliques on a piece of cardstock and mark with the letter F on the front of each piece that you're going to cut out. Symmetrical shapes like a heart or a circle or this leaf may not need to be traced upside down, but shapes like letters or animals that have a particular position need to be traced in reverse. The starburst in the center of our applique this month is not symmetrical, so you will need to trace it in reverse onto the Wonder Under. I'm going to show you 3 ways to make your fusible appliques. The first one is very easy. You just take a piece of your Wonder Under, place it over your design, and trace the number of pieces for whatever fabric. So, for example, the leaves are going to be out of this fabric here. So I'm just going to come and trace the number of leaves that I need. And make sure you leave space. Make sure you leave space in between because we're going to cut these apart. Continue tracing all the pieces until you have the number you need for this particular fabric. In this case, we need 6 leaves. Next, you're just going to rough cut apart your pieces, leaving a little space around each applique. And you may want to trim it down a little closer so you're not putting all that glue onto the fabric. So I would just trim it down to about like that. And it doesn't have to be beautiful, it just has to fit. So of course we're going to go on the wrong side of the fabric. I'm going to trim my pieces down like this. And then I'm just going to place it on here and press. About 5 or 6 seconds is all you need. Now you can lay more than one down at a time, but I find that they tend to shift, so I just like to put them down one at a time. And I really do like to trim off all this extra paper because that's just extra glue. So there we go. Once you have all your pieces adhered to the back side of your fabric, you want to let that cool. Once your appliques have cooled, you can take and cut them apart and then trim them up. I like to just rough cut them apart because then when I go to trim, I can handle them and manipulate them more easily. Now that I got it apart, you can cut right on your line. And this will leave a clean, smooth edge on your applique. And then you have your applique for your map. I'm going to get these cut up and then we'll move on to the next technique. The next way that I'm going to show you to create your fusible applique shapes is really good if you have a lot of the same shape to make. So for example, these circles. In this case, I'm going to take a piece of fusible and cut it to the size of the fabric that I have. So my fabric's this big, and I want to cut my fusible fabric down to fit. You don't want your fusible bigger than your fabric because otherwise it will make a mess on your iron or on your ironing board. So that is one risky part of this one, but it saves a lot of time. So you only do the trimming once this way. So here's the fabric that I want for my berries. Side note, on this particular pattern for block number 3, only 3 of these berries are one color and 3 of these berries are a different color, but I wanted all 6 of mine the same. So I'm making 6 berries of one color, just as a side note so you aren't confused as to what I'm doing. But here I go. I'm going to press the glue side down to the wrong side of my big chunk of fabric, and I'm covering the whole fabric. And then I'm just using the iron to go over the footprint like that. And now I'm going to let this cool, just like I let these cool already marked, but now I'm going to let this cool. And I have to cut out one of these circles. So I'm going to cut out this one here. Again, I'm just going to rough cut it out like this, and then I can trim it down. And I like to aim to trim to the outside of the line so that in case I make a mistake, I've got a little room to spare. I can always come back and trim it up, but if you start trimming and trimming and trimming pretty soon, you've got a very small shape. So there you go. You can see most of the black is still there. All right, and now we're going to put this on here, and we're going to trace out 6 circles. Now, if this were an odd shape, I would want to turn this over like this so the front side is down. So I'm making it in the reverse. In this case, it doesn't matter. But it's a good habit to do it like this. So I'm going to just go around and make 6 circles. Okay, and last one. Now, another little point on this one, you don't have to leave as much space between your pieces because we're going to cut this out right on the line to start with. Unlike these pieces, we had to cut out the paper first and then the applique. Now again, I'm just going to kind of cut these apart. And then I can just trim them out right on the line. And there you go. Now, this second technique is faster, and you can use it for odd shapes that need to be done in the reverse. This technique, you cannot do pieces that need to be in reverse. So it could only be symmetrical shapes in the first technique. The second technique is perfectly good for odd shapes. I'm going to finish cutting out my berries, and then we'll do style number 3. Now, the third way to create your fusible applique is similar to the first way. We're going to back the fabric First, you're going to make sure that your piece of paper covers your motif, which it does. And we're going to back the fabric with the paper. Remember, make sure your paper is smaller than your fabric so you don't make a mess. I have to let that cool, and I have to cut out this shape. This is going to be for the hex flower. Now this is the one piece on here that is not symmetrical. And this technique works great if you have a lot of pieces that are not symmetrical, and you've got to be very careful about making sure you get things right side up or wrong side up. I'm going to quick cut this out. I'm going to cut it out again. I just like to go on the outside. I like to be able to see that line. That means that I've cut it well and not gotten too far in or too far out. I don't know, maybe it's just my my OCD kicking in. Okay, now instead of tracing it on this side, we're going to turn this over this way. We're going to put the piece on the top of the right side face up. So like if you have alphabet letters or animals that face a certain direction, you can see right away if you've got it right or wrong. And then I use my friction marker here in white because I'm using a dark piece. And I'm going to go around the shape. And this way I know for sure that I have got this right side up, facing up, like that. Now keep in mind, because the friction markers erase with heat, you have to make sure that this piece has cooled before you try to write on it, or it will disappear like that. I'm just going to fill that in really quick. Okay, and now we're going to cut right outside the line. And it's okay if you leave some line because, of course, this is going to heat erase. And when we go to fuse this down onto our project, that line is going to disappear. But we are going to have a perfectly right side up applique. Just like that. Now that piece goes in here, and this goes here, and I have all my applique pieces finished. Next, we're going to take the paper off, and I'm going to show you a really cool trick to help you with that. After you've let all your pieces cool and you've trimmed them down to the right size on the line, it's time to remove the paper backing and apply them to your square. Now, occasionally you'll come across a piece where the paper just does not want to release. And instead of wasting too much time picking at the edges like this, I've got a slick trick that'll help you, because this will distort your piece and you'll start getting rough edges, and we don't want that. So I'm going to show you a slick way to remove the paper. Put the fabric side down on a hard surface. I like to use a piece of paper underneath it. It just gives it a little bit of cushion, but you do need a hard surface. And then take a straight pin. Well, I guess this pin's not so straight, but you know what I mean. Take a straight pin and score the back of the applique. You basically want to just break through the paper, and then I fold it like this to make sure that it's broke open, and then I take the pin and slide it right in there like that, and then look, it peels off like a band-aid, right? Both sides just peel right off like that, and now you can apply it. So let me show it to you again on one of these leaves because it's a little odder shape. So I just score it like that. I know you can't see it very well, but maybe if I put it up. And then I fold this, and I don't know if you can see that where it opens up. And then I take the pin and slide it in that spot to make sure I'm pulling just the paper and not the glue. And once you got it off, it just comes off so slick, and then you can apply it to your map. Once your pieces are prepared, position your appliques glue side down onto your map and background and press. I like to give these another 5 to 10 seconds. Just depends on how big the piece is, but really it should be plenty. Now, an important tip, don't try to lay out all the applique pieces at one time and fuse them all at once. The pieces can shift and the layout will get distorted. So I just do a couple pieces at a time. Like I put the center in and then I work my way out. And then I put a couple of leaves and then another couple of leaves. And then I started working my way around with the berries. Finally, you will need to secure these pieces with some stitching like last month. Review episode number 4 for a comprehensive look at finishing raw edge appliques. Once your applique block is complete, add it to the center of your ring pieces by sewing the double flying geese units to the side and then sewing the rows together. Add the floating borders around to protect the points, and that's it. And here it is. I think it just turned out beautiful. I love both the applique and the piece blocks. I think they turned out so beautiful. I love the color combination and the contrast. I can't wait to make the rest of the blocks so we can put together this beautiful quilt. You can find these fabrics from the Arrival of Winter Fabric by Sandy Gervais at www.thequilterscandyshop.com. That's SHOPPE shop.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode in our Winter's Garden Block of the Month. Now, let's go sew something sweet. Bye!